Hello and welcome to Talmud Vibes, where we try to talk about Judaism, Torah and Talmud in a more casual approach, yet maintaining the ultimate respect for Israel's most precious tradition. My name is Yair Alon and I am an Israeli rabbi living in Brazil. As you could learn from the title of the video, today we will be talking about one of the most prominent creatures in Jewish lore, the one and only Leviathan. What is this creature and where is it mentioned? This is the first thing we are going to discuss. Well, let's have a look at our sacred texts and see if we can find it out, shall we? For starters, let me say that in modern Hebrew, the word Leviathan simply means whale. But do not be deceived by this. Biblical literature is never talking about a whale when it mentions this creature. By the way, talking about whales, popular imagination usually believes it was a whale that swallowed Jonah, the prophet Yonah. And we can see children cartoons often showing this. It is kind of a common sense. However, this is not true. In the Tanakh, when we read Jonah's story in 2:1, the text tells us that he was swallowed by a dag gadol, a big fish, and that is neither connected to whales nor the Leviathan. Now that we got that out of the way, let's check what the Tanakh will tell us about the real Leviathan. In fact, if we look at the Torah, it doesn't mention the Leviathan at all. Well, kind of. Depending on what's your understanding and interpretation of the Leviathan and what it may be, it is there in Genesis 1:21, where the Torah says God created the great sea monsters. Wait a minute, did you say sea monsters as in plural form? Yes, I did say that. But wait, just a few moments ago, at the beginning of the video, I referred to the Leviathan as the one and only. Well, depending on whom you ask, that is not that accurate. And here is why. The word used in Genesis 1:21 to refer to this monster is taninim in plural form, and the Ramban with an N of Nachmanides, interpreting the Talmud passage of Bava Batra 74b, understands that everything God created upon the earth, he created as male and female. Therefore, there must be a Mr. Leviathan and a Mrs. Leviathan, cuddling somewhere. Remember that in Judaism, it's very rare that we see everybody agreeing with one opinion, and this is just the case here, okay? So for some commentators, of course, out there, we would have a single terrifying creature lurking in the depths of the sea without a male or female counterpart. Okay, not a part of the Torah or anything, but the Book of Enoch attests to Nachmanides' view. The Book of Enoch brings a different account of the creation and presents two monsters, male and female, being created, one as a complement to the other. There, in chapter 60, verse 6, the book tells us that Leviathan is actually the female monster placed in the depths of the seas, while the male counterpart is called Behemoth, and it was placed in a desert named Dudain. But again, this is a non-canonical book. It means it was not accepted in Torah or Tanakh. Coming back to the Torah, the text is rather silent about this creature. Well, if the Torah itself doesn't give us much info on the topic, what about checking the rest of the Tanakh? In the prophets, Nevi'im, especially in the book of Isaiah, we have some interesting details about this creature. In 27:1, we read, "In that day God will punish with a great, cruel, mighty sword the Leviathan, the elusive serpent, Leviathan, the twisting serpent, the dragon of the sea will be slain." This English translation is of the JPS Tanakh, and it gives us the word dragon as an equivalent to the Hebrew word tanin. Maybe not the best translation, and of course keep in mind that it is not the dragon like in an RPG stories, okay? but it's some kind of sea monster. Interesting to see that one of the most famous French translations of the Bible, the Bible du Rabbinat, renders the word simply as monstre, monstre qui habite la mer, a monster that lives in the sea. And the current translation says that Tanin is a crocodile. So you see how difficult it is for us to know what this word really means. We don't know much about it, except that it looks like a snake, as the verse says, even though the current Tanakh translates it as a crocodile. Anyways, the Leviathan is also mentioned in the Ketuvim. In the book of Job, the Leviathan is mentioned a couple of times, but just to tell us that it will be slain, and no description of the monster is given. So the verses do not inform us much in that sense. Finally, still in the Ketuvim, the book of Tehillim, the Psalms, bring us two mentions to the Leviathan, 74 and 104. One of the verses is not helpful, but the other one is quite puzzling. So puzzling that the sages felt the urge to explain it in the Talmud. Why? Because David, the author of Psalms, said that the Leviathan will be killed and served as food for human beings, for the denizens of the desert, in the Psalms expression. What is that about? Well, we must agree with the prophet Isaiah. This creature is indeed elusive. We searched the entire Tanakh in order to discover what the Leviathan is, and we have only a few pieces of information about it. Well, perhaps if we pay a visit to the sages of the Talmud, the Hazal, they can help us understand a little bit more about this sea monster. As we already mentioned, there is a part of the Talmud that addresses the matter of the Leviathan. There is the tractate Bava Batra 74b. The sages discuss many aspects about the monster without really reaching much of a conclusion. Then in page 75a, there is an interesting comment made by Rav Dimi. In the future, Gabriel, the angel Gabriel, will hunt Leviathan. Can you imagine that scene? Rav Dimi also mentions that it is Leviathan which is the responsible for boiling the waters in the depth of the sea when it feels hungry. I wonder where he's getting this information from. Anyways, the sages make a lot of interesting commentings there. I would strongly recommend, if you can, that you check them out. In comparison to the almost zero descriptions of the Tanakh, the Talmud has plenty to say about the Leviathan. The most interesting commentary of them all, in my opinion, is the one found in Bava Batra 75a, which serves as an explanation to the mysterious pasuk of Tehillim of Psalms we mentioned earlier. When David says that the flesh of Leviathan will be given to those in the desert, it means that God will make a feast for the righteous from the flesh of the Leviathan. Anyone up for sushi? In the same page of the Talmud, the sages also tell us that the skin of the Leviathan will also be useful. It will be used as a sukkah, a tent or a hut prepared for the tzaddikim to sit below its shade. And if that wasn't enough, the Talmud tells that in case there is anything left of the Leviathan, after all that, it will be traded in the markets of Jerusalem. Shopping time. This idea of the feast for the righteous is also mentioned in Sanhedrin 97b, but in a more apocalyptic tone about the end of the world. As usual, I'd like to know what's your take of all of this. What do you think is the Leviathan? Is it real, as real for real, or maybe is it an allegory and a symbol used by the sages to represent something else? In your opinion, should we see the Leviathan as a literal sea monster, maybe somewhere, hidden somewhere, or as a symbol of something? And if a symbol, of what? Leave your comments below. So I hope you liked all that information about this big monster, the Leviathan. Once again, don't forget to like the video and leave your feedbacks in the comments below. As I always ask you, what parts of the videos and the channel are you enjoying? What maybe am I doing wrong and I could improve? which topics would you like to see next? And as always, don't forget, join us next week when we will be discussing the mysterious the book, the malicious spirits that are believed to possess the living. This is it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week for another episode of Talmud Vibes. Stay tuned, stay healthy, and all the best.